Hey y'all, I want to talk about Matthew 14 today. Jesus walking on the water. It is an extremely popular text that even if you have never stepped foot in a church, I feel like you have heard about this, but I'll do a brief rundown if you haven't. So verse 25, the disciples were out on a boat on the lake, and Jesus was not on the boat with them. But he starts walking on water across the lake to the disciples. And the text says that they get very fearful and they cry out, "It's a ghost." And Jesus says, "Don't be afraid, it is I." And Peter, of course, Peter opens his mouth and he said, "Lord, if it's you, tell me to come to you on the water." In verse 29, Jesus says, "Come." He gives them the invitation to come. And Peter gets out of the boat. He starts walking on the water. Everything's going fine and dandy. He's going towards Jesus. But verse 30 says that when he saw the wind, he was afraid and he began to sink and he cried out, "Lord, save me." Verse 31 says, immediately Jesus reached out his hands and caught him and said, "You have little faith." And here's the question that we're going to spend a lot of time on. He said, "Why do you doubt?" I feel like a lot of us struggle with doubt, and that's a big question. Why do you doubt? And the answer, I feel like a lot of times when we've been walking with Jesus, is spiritual amnesia. We forget how he has come through for us in the past. And if you think about it, a lot of these disciples are probably fishermen. They've been on the boat on water tons of times. They've probably encountered tons of storms. But sometimes we go through things in life that beg for us to stare them down. They feel so big, like they feel so much bigger than anything we've had to walk through at work or as a parent in our marriage. We feel like we've never walked through something this hard, and so it begs us to look it in the eye and take our eyes off Jesus and to look into this wave and into the wind, into the storm. And it boils down to spiritual amnesia. And if you keep reading in Matthew, it made me think about when Jesus feeds the 5,000. He's with the disciples. People are growing hungry. They only have a few loaves of bread and fish, and Jesus has enough to feed the 5,000 and then have leftovers. But then we skip, I don't know, maybe like 2 chapters, and they encounter 4,000 they have to feed, and the disciples are so worried, like, what are we going to do? And us, as the reader, when it's only been like maybe 2 chapters before we know they fed 5,000, we're like, what are you talking about? What you're going to do? What are you going to do? You're with Jesus. He just fed 5,000. Don't you think he can handle 4,000? That's like 1,000 less. But in the moment, it seems like they've never walked through that before. They've never had to handle feeding that many people. And they forget that he just came through for them. He just fed 5,000 with what they had and then had some to spare. So don't they think he can deliver them out of this? Wouldn't you think? But it boils down to not remembering what he's done for us in the past. Right now, whatever you are walking through, however big the wave is, however strong the wind is, however monstrous the storm is right now in your life, I guarantee you, he has carried you through something just as big or bigger. And if not, he will see you through this. He will carry you through this storm. And I know right now what you're going through is begging you to take your eyes away and stare it down in the face. But your God is bigger.